Good morning, everyone. This is Professor Cherry again. I just wanted to make you aware of some supplements I've added to the course content in the module on writing using examples, Module 3. And so the first thing, on Sunday you have do a practice assignment, write an example paragraph. And I wanted to call your attention to the PDF that I posted there as an example. Now, notice the little note here that says click on the link above to view a model paragraph written to a different prompt. So although your prompt is students should identify an important or small purchase that reveals something about their, meaning the students, individual likes, dislikes, or lifestyle. So basically you're choosing an object that you own or possess, and then from your own personal experience, direct observation, you're explaining what that reveals about your individual likes, dislikes, and lifestyle. And here are some guides for planning and writing the paragraph. These are just pre-writing techniques. What is the item? Why was it purchased? Who else can enjoy it? When did you purchase it? How was it purchased? What examples support the thesis? Or in this instance, since we're writing only a paragraph, we're not really talking about thesis statements. We're talking about topic sentences. But as I always say to students, the only difference between a topic sentence and a thesis statement is one of scale. Thesis statement expresses the main idea of an essay, whereas your topic sentence expresses the main idea of a paragraph. So here is a paragraph a student from, actually an essay a student wrote for me several years ago. And her prompt was books that I read when I was a child that reflect me today. And so notice here she begins with a transition into her topic sentence, which is the controlling idea for this paragraph. I'll read only a portion of it just to give you an example of using exemplification or writing using examples to illustrate or prove a point. Notice how specific she is. So in this essay, we're building upon the work we did with descriptive writing to take that fine eye for detail and specifics to a different mode, which is exemplification, to really paint a clear picture. So technically, you may or may not describe in an exemplification essay. Description can be used for examples. However, you are still using that specific prose that we worked on in the previous module. So it says, during middle school, I probably read more in a 3-year period than I have in the other 15 years of my life put together. My favorite series of that time was James Patterson's Maximum Ride. The series focuses on Max, a 14-year-old girl who was genetically engineered to have wings and fly. Her 5 friends have also been genetically altered like she has, and they live together peacefully on a secluded cliff until a team of mutants called Erasers attack them, destroy their home, and chase them down. And what I like about this is that the writer here is showing sensitivity to audience. She doesn't assume the audience has read Maximum Ride, which I have not. And so she summarizes it with enough detail and specifics so that you get basically what the story is about. And then she transitions to her main point, which is going back to how those books reflect who she is today. When I started reading Maximum Ride, I'd never read anything remotely like it before. It introduced me to the genre of science fiction, and I actually decided to use the concept of genetic engineering for my concentration portfolio in my AP Studio class in senior year. Many of the pieces contain themes of mutated humans or animals. I also painted a microscope slide of cells and bacteria, but I used natural colors in order to make them seem more deformed. Had I not been so interested in Maximum Ride, and here initially she gave you, okay, so this book affected me, how did it affect me? She gives examples, right? So she lays out the evidence in that little section of her paragraph. But it's not enough because the reader doesn't quite get why those examples are so significant. So what she does is, following the positioning of those examples, she comments on them. She gives them context and meaning so that the reader fully understands. Remember, illustration Sort of the visual metaphor I'd like for you to think of is of a light bulb moment where the light bulb comes on and you see what the writer is trying to say. And so she had to add the comment so to clarify exactly what she means. Had I not been so interested in Maximum Ride, I may have chosen a different concentration altogether. Maximum Ride also prompted me to think about science and its ethical limits. There is much debate over how far science should be able to go before it crosses a moral line. A vast majority would consider the scientist tampering with Max's and her friend's DNA to be extremely unethical. I think questions like these are important to consider, as it makes a person much more well-rounded, and I'm glad that I started forming opinions on topics like this so early growing up. My apologies for the errors here. This document I converted it from a PDF into Word and something got lost in the mix of it. But anyway, I hope you see the point there that we were trying to make with this essay. And so the other things that you have in your module are, now the other thing we have in this module that I placed there is, you scroll past the model paragraph, is added lecture content on writing thesis statements and topic sentences. This is just supplemental material that you may or may not want to access, depending on how strong your grasp is of these concepts. You have a link to the University of North Carolina's Writing Center for their handout on thesis statements, which really doesn't, again, come into play until next week with the completion of your timed essay, as well as the exemplification or writing using examples paper. Another link, a short video on writing an effective thesis, which is a good video. And then here is a thesis statement and topic sentences handout that I created, and just want to show you how you can make some use of this. And so it lays out the three elements of a thesis. You need to identify your topic, state a claim, and a unique perspective, observation that you bring to the table. Thesis statement always says something that's new or fresh, so that it motivates the reader's interest. It draws them in to a conversation in which you have to present your evidence, your proof. And a third optional component is the reasons why, what we refer to as a map. You're not required to write a three-part thesis, but sometimes, especially I think in situations of time tests, sometimes having a sort of a template for banging out those three reasons can help avoid issues with, let's say you run out of ideas in the middle of a timed essay and you're like, okay, I've written 2 paragraphs and I have nothing else to say. So if you take some time in that pre-writing process to be able to identify at least 3 little talking points, 1, 2, 3, chances are you should be okay. And so you have all these elements, and together they comprise a thesis. And there's a whole lot of information here, but I want to fast forward to this one prompt. So your practice paragraph is on a topic, or excuse me, a product that reveals something about yourself. So for me, I chose my topic would be my workout gear. My claim, what I believe is, reflects my personality or my values. And then the general reasons I believe my claim to be true is that my wardrobe is wide-ranging, it's low-key, and it's quirky. Okay, so I look at all my gear, yoga gear, Zumba gear, body combat gear, body pump gear, walking gear, bicycle riding gear, yoga gear, and Payo gear. I got everything. So anyway, so here's my thesis. And then topic sentences, again, are main idea statements for your individual paragraphs that develop your essay. What you need for your essay to do is to be unified. Only address the topic that your thesis predicts or anticipates. And if you use a map, it has to follow that order. It should be sequential to that map. Again, a map is optional. Another thing is, along with essay unity, you need essay coherence. You need there to be some connection between the parts of your essay, between paragraphs, within a paragraph. so that it flows. The reader is not being barraged with information seemingly randomly. That connection needs to be established by you, the writer, the composer. So here is my thesis topic sentence, which is a sort of miniature outline without the details and the examples that will illustrate. So my thesis is, my workout gear reflects my values because it is wide-ranging, low-key, and quirky. My topic sentence, it clearly anticipates my order, wide-ranging, first paragraph or section for a longer essay, low-key, second section, and quirky, third section. So topic sentence 1. My workout gear consists of various styles, colors, and brand names, and thus reflects my open-minded nature. For instance, and then with the for instance, I'm starting to branch out to my evidence or my support for that, the examples that I will use. But notice how this echoes wide-ranging without quite repeating the language. You don't want a bunch of repetition in your sentences because that's deadening to the reader. The second topic, in addition to being versatile, my gear is defiantly low-key, just as I am. I refuse to dress up to work out, even though I like looking good. Similarly, my approach to life is no drama mama or papa, as it were. One example of this is, and then building on, notice what I'm trying to do is connect back to my argument, which is gear reflects my values. So I am open-minded, I'm low-key, and then third, I value creativity in my life, a certain looseness in approaching everyday situations and challenges. Thus, my workout clothes echo this trait of mine. To clarify, and so on and so forth. And so what we have again is the sense of unity, embedding in that as well, coherence, all of these ideas similarly connect, the brief repetition in addition in this transition, and then moving on to I value creativity. By then you built a rhythm, and so the reader knows what's to follow and what's going on. And then you try to, by the end of your essay, address that significance issue. Why does it matter? Who cares how I dress? No one's going to ever see me. So we got to move beyond the self to the other, to the audience, and say, how can I connect with my reader on a human, sort of universal level? Always, well, one way you can do that is to invoke a great writer or a quotation that is authoritative or pithy or helpful in some way. Shakespeare once famously wrote, that clothes make the man. In my case, I'm not so sure that clothes make me or that I make them, using them to reflect the self I am and am becoming, all the while telegraphing to the world my values, my interests, and my hopes. As such, I'm always a work in progress. And so that concludes it there. And probably I would take it a little further to connect with the audience even more, but that's an idea that I'm working with. And in this tentative sort of pre-writing outlining phase, at least I'm headed in the direction. I'll revise this and refine it once I've written my essay and really figured out what I wanted to say. Sometimes we get caught up in thinking that an essay is telling the world what we think, and we have to know what we think before we sit down and write, and that's not true. Part of the wonder of essay writing is that it is an exploration. It helps us clarify what we think, even to ourselves, and express that to the world. And so as we revise and we look and we reflect on what we've done, we're able to more, I think, clearly articulate a stance. And that's all a thesis is. And an essay is an attempt to explain that thesis, that idea. I hope this helps.